Okay, it is 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and welcome to week 2 of Introduction to Corrections. And today, I'm going to share a few things with you. During the course of this past week, you had a chance to hopefully see the open house recording, which I emailed to each of you, as well as posted it on the course home page, so that you'll be able to look at that. I do encourage you to look at that video. It's rather lengthy, but it has some very valuable information about myself. It also provides very valuable information concerning the project, which will help you to get that done. And so, without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen. Okay. And again, my instructor information is at the top right, and my phone number, and then my reminder to you the importance of APA and critical thinking in the grading of the assignments, and then reminding you to feel free to call me, text me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. Most of you have figured that out, and calling me is fine. Texting me is fine also. Just make sure when you text me that you indicate who you are, your name, and indicate which class that you're in, since I teach several classes. And you can email me any hour of the day, except the 25th hour. Now, emailing, you can do it by sending me regular S-mail outside of class, or you could go to the section which says Course Messages, and when you click on Course Messages, you will discover that it leads you to where there are messages. I have 2 in here. I'm not going to open that up in here, but you will see when you open up yours messages that generally I've sent or someone else has sent you, but generally it will be me. And so you want to make sure that you find yourself in a situation where you've clicked on it, because a lot of emails, I send emails out to you quite frequently containing information pertaining to the course. And so that's where your course messages are. And then there is a section in here for other information as well. Getting started, as well as discussions, your textbook, your syllabus, your discussions, and then your weekly assignments. And so we're on week 2. So I'm going to go back to the course home page. And the course home page contains a lot of information that you will find that is very valuable to you concerning a one-sheeter that can help you. And those of you who need APA assistance, if you click on this one and open it up, it will lead you to a guide to help you with APA as well. Among other things, I also include the writing process. You can click on that, which says More, and open it up, and it will provide you with details. And then, of course, throughout the quarter, you'll see your welcome announcement. And your welcome announcement welcomes you to the course that I sent to you at the very beginning of the course last week. And it tells you things to check out very carefully. I mentioned the course mail that I sent to you. You will find that in there as well. And it tells you various things, such as the calendar, which we're going to be checking in a minute, okay? So now we're going to close that up. So now let's take a look at our weekly announcements. Very important that you pay close attention to your weekly announcements, because in your weekly announcements, you will discover information and details that will help you to prepare for that week. Um, Module 2, which is what we're in now this week, we're going to deal with sentencing and the correctional process. Sentencing and the correctional process. And I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit while I go through the assignments first. And then your reading is section 4 of the text. Section 4 of the text. You should also have received from me section 4 PowerPoints. Every week you will receive PowerPoints that coincide with the reading itself as well. Now, the PowerPoints I won't use in class very much, because the purpose of the PowerPoints is to give you an outline of the chapter and other information that can help you. And you can give you some places to start your research even. You don't cite I don't want you to cite in the PowerPoint, but I do, say that there's some information in there that can help you handle your assignments for that week. And then there's an activity, which is not really an assignment. Sentencing issues and sentencing definitions, we're going to go over that in just a few minutes. And then I remind you that our lectures are every other Wednesday, or as you'll see in a minute, week 2, which is what is taking place right now, week 4, week 6, week 8, and week 10 at 8:30 p.m. Central. If you're in Eastern Time Zone, it's probably 9:37. And if you're at Rocky Mountain, then it is 7:37. If you're on the West Coast, it's 6:37 or 6:38, around that time. So the focal time is to remember the time that I'm on. So if you're on the East Coast, you could always end up a little early, because you'd be an hour early. If you did 8:30 your time, it'll only be 7:30 here. Be sure to participate in a discussion assignment, goals, and philosophy of sentencing. That's what the issues that you're going to be dealing with in your discussion posts. And remember, I've stated discussion posts are due all the time except the last week, but we'll get to that later. By 11:59 p.m. Tuesday, which was yesterday, and reply posts are due Saturday, 11:59 p.m. It's mentioned in every announcement. The only thing that changes in that is this, because the topics change. Finally, complete the written assignment, determinate or indeterminate sentencing. And it's determinate or indeterminate sentences. Your state has either one or the other, or a combination. Most states have one or the other. And then, so you're going to do some research to find out in the state that you're in, and then you're going to determine what the details or information. I'm in Illinois, so those of you who are in Illinois that are in this class, you use Illinois. Those of you who are in Florida, you use Florida. Those of you who are in Minnesota, use Minnesota. Wisconsin, Kansas. Those are just a few of the states that I know where my students are from, or where they're having their classes now. And then this course project, which I extensively covered last week in the open house. Again, I invite each of you to go back to the open house to look at it, to make sure that your selection of agency and contact person coincide with the project. I'll be talking about that in a few minutes. A few students who have submitted them have submitted agencies that don't fit. And it's very important to remember the agencies that do fit. And I'll talk about that again in just a minute, but I elaborate in detail. Elaborate in detail. I'm going to say this. The open house is a tool that I developed to help you, especially with the project, because I've been teaching this course a number of quarters, and I can tell you I'm adding the mistakes that other students have made and reminding students, don't skip the open house. Do not skip the open house. And I do recommend students to try to attend the lectures. Sometimes many of you are not able to make them. Sometimes some students won't come because they discover that you won't get a grade for attending. But I say this to you as I said it to myself. Anything that benefits me, that my instructor is willing to take the time to do, I'm going to show up unless I can't, unless I'm working and can't. Some of you should also know that as far as the lectures are concerned, that there is a tool that you can get that is an app. And many of you have one of these. In my case, this is a Note 8 Android. Many of you guys have that Apple, which is not my tool, but it still does the same thing. So they tell me anyway. And then the other thing I want to say is that you can actually go to your apps, whether it's Apple app or either, so we have Play Store in the Android, Google Play, or you can go to Apple, wherever it is, and you can type in the words WebEx, W-E-B-E-X, excuse me, and it will lead you to an app. And the app actually allows you to log in. You can set it up and everything, and you'll be able to log in to the lectures. If you have trouble logging in to the lectures using that, contact PSC, Personal Support, and they can help you and tell you how to do it. So that if you're away, you could even listen to the lecture if you're away from your computer. You can have your tablet and you can do it. And it also has a nice little video on there as well. So anyway, so those of you who can't attend the live lectures, but try to attend whenever you can. And then you'll always see at the bottom of the announcements, let's continue to be strong and finish strong. You'll learn that my motto is adversity is the springboard to success. You'll see it every week, and you will understand what it's all about when you listen to my story about my life, what led me into becoming a lawyer, what led me into becoming a criminal justice professional, and led me into being the kind of teacher that I am now. And so it is very, very, very important that you take some time and listen to that. I think you'll learn a lot about your professor. And then, again, additional course information. I keep reminding students that the sole source of the papers cannot be the textbook. You'll lose 2 points for failure to conduct research. And I will note that in the rubric when I provide your grade. And you'll be able to see that in there, and you need to correct that. But the idea is I want you to do research. And you'll notice, too, when I go through the assignments, you'll see at the bottom it says research. Also, all written assignments should be APA format. That means citations in the body and references at the end. Now, I'm not so dogmatic as some professors to require that in citations, in discussion posts, but I have, an appreciation when the student takes the time to provide a citation in the body and references in the end. I let you know. I let you know what I like. I let you know what I don't like. I let you know when you've done something right. I let you know when you've done something wrong. And so that's very important that you pay attention to that. You'll see that here. If you happen to go over look at the syllabus, you'll see it there also. And then this is some helpful resources. One of them is your advisors, your peer mentoring or tutoring. There's a student success guide in there. There's a writing guide. There's a library and learning resources. That will help you in terms of your research. We have one specifically put together by our library and learning team to help you with research and to provide you with credible resources for your written assignments. Then this again elaborates on tutoring. And then there are articles going beyond the textbook, which kind of helps you with what I was talking about earlier. Some analytical tips, which helps you with critical thinking, information literacy, and why we refer to it and what's so important. Referencing for the criminal justice students, which will line up with the APA, and then annotated bibliography. You won't run into that too much in this class. And then I was sharing with a student recently the critical thinking video, which you'll hear me talk a lot about, and that okay. I'm going to, I see Naya there. I'm ready to, okay, very nice. I'm going to leave your video up there because you're not the only ones on there. Unless you just want to close it, it's okay. But the point matter is that sometimes it deals with a problem with it. But when there's only us two, don't worry about it. If it gets crowded, I'll say, let's shut you down there, okay? All right, beautiful smile there. So then we have rubrics that you will discover that are each week located in the written assignments and the course projects. Very, very critical, very, very important. I recommend using them as a guide. I can tell you, you can't go wrong if you follow those rubrics, and make sure you check to see that every bit of your paper satisfies each section of the rubric. I will not lead you the wrong way in that. Well, my last name is Wright. Why would I lead you the wrong way? That's just okay. And then the discussion posts. Again, there's a rubric in here for that as well. Okay. So now, finally, on the course homepage is the live lecture session. Reminds you, you know, I had a student one time, they were trying to find one of my lectures, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and they went to this, and a message pops up on my phone that I'm always with. My phone is attached to me all the time, you know, it's right here, here it is, you know, and when it goes off, it's right by my bed, and, you know, it lights up. My wife said, what's that lighting up? I said, that's just my phone, okay. But anyway, this particular student logged into the lecture session. I'm not having a live lecture at 1:30 in the morning. I haven't done that yet. I don't know, maybe one day I'll do that. But at this point, I haven't been led to do that. That's probably why, because I'm grading papers at that time. But at any rate, the live lectures, this is the place, but you have to do it at the time the lecture's taking place, i.e. right now. And then again, they talked about the open house that has taken place last week. Live lectures, again, every other Wednesday. Count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and that's it. And so after today, we only have 4 more lectures to go before the quarter will be over. And so make sure that you try to attend those if you can. Recordings, down here in this section, we only had 1 so far. It says open house. If you were to copy that, which I'm not, and then click on it, put it in your browser up here, like at the top, then you will be able to see that recording. It's on YouTube. And what I do is I convert all the WebEx stuff to YouTube, because anybody, anywhere, anytime can get YouTube. And with this link, you can even locate it. So at the end of this lecture, it's going to say week 2 lecture, and then it's going to have HTTP // and all the other stuff that goes behind it there. So that's how you find that. Okay. So now let's go to the calendar. Now, there are two ways you can find the calendar. I think on yours it might be on the left side, but I'm going to do this. Let me move this down. There, just moved you down a little bit. Calendar is right at the top, right across where I have. It says calendar at the top. I don't know if it's yours like that, but I'm pretty sure it is on the student view, and resources as well. But if you click on calendar, like I'm getting ready to do now, it will open up your calendar. Okay, and it will show you nothing right now. I'll tell you why. It's not your end. It's because I got to make sure that I check this. When I check this, instantly, Wally, just like magic, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, there we go. All right. And so it populates the entire calendar, and it gives you everything that you need to know. Let's move your picture up there again. Yeah, you know I can move you all over the place there. So, all right. So anyway, you have here now week 2, which is the 9th. That was 2 days ago. Now, I have to tell students, they look at this, they say, all I see is this little bit of information. I say, put your mouse on that, left click it, voila. It tells you read section 4. And it tells you the section that's available. Plus up here, you'll see it up there as well. So, and it tells you that to read. Then, same thing here. Your initial post, it tells you what the topic is, and it tells you that it's due all day on that day, which means until 11:59 p.m. on, that was yesterday, Tuesday. Same thing here with live lecture. Notice what the live lecture is. If you click on that, it gives you a whole lot of stuff. It tells you the time, says it lasts at least 1 hour. It doesn't most of the time. And then it gives you the link. Again, there's another place for the link. You copy and paste that, and then I explain what I do with the live lectures. And so you go all the way across there. Then you get to your written assignments. Okay, that's Saturday, I should say here, that your reply is done. And then the 15th, which I love because that's payday. So actually payday is the 13th because, you know, Friday the 13th, nothing good happens wrong. I'm getting paid. Okay. So anyway, the point of the matter is that your assignments are due on Sunday, the 15th. And I remind you again what the topic is. I remind you to provide APA citations in the body and reference at the end. Be sure to do an adequate job of preparing the assignment. Requires 2 pages. This is all, I mean, I have it all over the place. Repeating the facts don't satisfy the requirement. I had a student one time, man, they had a 2-page paper. It was all long, but 3/4 of it was they were repeating what the facts were. And I said, I know the facts. I want to know what you're thinking. I'm more interested in your critical thinking in your papers, because that's what's going to get you the grades, okay? That's what's going to also help you in your employment opportunities as well. Okay, so that is due. And then again, we're talking about opening up, see the requirements in Module 2 under the assignments and rubric. So it's kind of hard to get lost here. So then, just for your information, coming up after that, starting next week, Monday the 16th, same thing, we go through the same process, again, all over. Which, by the way, reminds me, we don't have a quiz this week. The quizzes are timed, and I highly recommend taking the quiz at least at the end. You've gone through all the material, because then you're going to better, because you need to put your material away and then take the test. It's 10 minutes, and it's not going to let you have a break. Uh, Sometimes students run into problems, and they let me know, like my power went out or something like that. Okay, I believe you, but I'm not going to believe if your power is going out every week because then you're not going to be able to do it. I operate on the basis of, I don't even know if you know anything about golf, any of you guys, but there's a thing called mulligan. That means it gives you another chance without penalizing you. And so I give you a mulligan on the quiz so you can take it again. But the point of the matter is, it's 10 questions, 10 minutes, and you want to get those done. We only have 5 of those. So anyway, there won't be one this week, but during week 3, there will be one there. So, all right, let's go back to the classroom, and let's get out of that, back out of it, do it this way. Here we go. Okay, so now let's go to the actual module. Here we go. Now, I always start with this. Yes, I repeat over and over and over. One student told me, he says, yeah, you know, you spend a lot of time going over stuff more than once. Yes. I says, I'm the one that does the grading, and I know sometimes if you're not getting it the first time, you might miss something, and then you get it the second time. Let's see, that went by so fast. Let me go back and see what you said there. You had a chat. Let's see, 10 minutes. Yeah, I know. That's the school policy. I didn't do that. But we wanna make sure that you understand something. Guess what? You're going to be taking time tests for the rest of your life. Most tests. Very rarely will you get a test that you don't have, you know, any. Whoops! I made you a little big there. Let's make you so you don't cover up the material. I'm trying to move you up. There we go. So anyway, so no, yeah, I know. I had that. Okay. But it can be done. I've seen students get hundreds on them, and I say this to every student: you can do it. We don't give you things to do that you cannot do. Okay, so like we don't ask you to do something that's impossible. All right. Some students say, well, all this written assignment reading, that's impossible. I said, wrong answer, because somebody can do it. But anyway, the assignments again. 2-page paper. Yeah, you told me that. I'm telling you again. See that word? First, research the state in which you reside. And then, you provide this information. I'm not going to read all of that. Second, argue which of those 2 types. When we say argue, we use this term in law a lot. We present arguments all the time. What we mean is that we're presenting our side of the situation and circumstance, and we want to make sure that you support it as well. And so use proper grammar, spelling, APA format. It's like all over the place, man, and then we tell you where you can find it. If you can't, resources tab. I also showed you where you can find it here. So now what I do is this. Click on this, and it brings up 2 things that you should know. Professor, I didn't look at the calendar. I didn't read the announcement, so I don't really know what date it's due. As soon as you click on the assignment, the first thing you see is that it says Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then, possible points, 25. It says rubric, but it tells you, view the rubric. So how do you view it? Put your mouse on it. Click on it. Voila, there it is. And it tells you how you get 15 points. It tells you what to do. It tells you that you got to satisfy all of these requirements, okay? And the 2-page minimum requirement. You'll get dinged if you don't. and then it tells you about your structure and stuff like that. Most of my students don't lose a lot of points like this. I do, though, remind students, don't give me, I had students sometimes that give me one paper, 2 pages long. It's one paragraph. I get tired when I get a chance to read it. No, you don't write like that. You know, all of us know that. One paragraph, no, too long, of an appropriate length. And anyway, I'm not going to go over this, because guess what? If you pay attention to this rubric, here's one thing you'll discover. You'll discover that this second section and the third section are identical every week. There's nothing changed in there. So, you know, but think about it. If you don't do APA right, you'll lose 5 points. So instead of getting 25 points, you get 20 points. And that, you know, you look at where it drops you in terms of your grade and that. So it's important. It's important. Why is it important? It's important because we're trying to prepare you to prepare a more professional document as a habit in school. So guess what? When you go into your profession, you'll be already at that mode, and that's where you ought to be. And then we tell you, make sure you use credible sources. Wikipedia. If you use Wikipedia, you're going to lose points right away, right off the bat. There are some students who use Wikipedia. They said, oh, yeah, let me explain to you why we don't use Wikipedia. A lot of students know this, but I'm going to say it to save some time. Wikipedia is a website that's word-based, which means it's like you give somebody, you know, when I send somebody a document generally, I don't like to send them a Word document unless I want them to have the ability to edit it. Because if I send you a Word document, you can change it. So let's imagine that there's some critical date in there information-wise, some crazy person, and there's a lot of those around, will go in and change that date, and then you'll be relying on that information, and it'll be wrong. Okay? So anyway, that's the rubric. Now, the rubric shows up here, and also once I won't go to it because I don't want to show anybody's grades or nothing, because that violates what we call FERPA, which is a law that protects your privacy in terms of grades and stuff like that. But at any rate, the point of the matter is that you can go to your grade book, and you will click on your grade. You know how to go to your grade book, and when you get there, you see rubric, and you can click on the rubric, and it will tell you down there my comments or remarks about what it is. And I'm going to tell you, I have students that I know that don't read them, and the reason why I know they don't is because I see the same errors over and over again, especially with APA. Okay? Now, then the next thing, your discussion posts. I'm not going to click on that one, but you know what that is. Now, let's go to our course project. Selection of agency, contact person. So now this is your first written assignment. Last week was not a written assignment. It was an introduction or informational for you. So I want in a paragraph or two, describe the agency you've selected. Include a sentence or two as to why you selected that agency. And in another paragraph, identify the person that you interview at the agency with their contact information. So when making your initial contact with that person, you'll have the opportunity to demonstrate to them communication. That's one of our transferable skills. Again, if you listen to the lecture, the open house, you'll hear me talk about transferable skills and the importance of transferable skills that this college stresses. By the time you leave here, you will have heard that term a million times along with critical thinking, which is one of the transferable skills. Use appropriate audience-specific tone and vocabulary. What you're doing is when you're communicating, you're representing yourself, you're representing the university as a professional. Always approach your job in a professional fashion. And because this is a written assignment as well, you have a rubric that goes with it. Again, it says the same thing, the due date. It says view the rubric. And then if you click on viewing the rubric, you will see exactly what I just said a few minutes ago. How you can get, look at this. This is a little different. And the reason why it's a little different because it's a different kind of assignment. But it's still pretty much, this part still follows the same. However, you get 2 points here. You lose if you don't do this right. Now, don't worry about the 2-page minimum requirement. I thought I took that out. I meant to fix that. Don't disregard that. Don't even worry. It doesn't have to be 2 pages. Okay. I caught myself trying to fix that. I missed that week. I'm going to fix it. So, but don't worry about it. If you just follow what the procedures are that it requires. Everything else in here is correct. Then APA, you don't have to worry about that. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. I won't ding you for that. And you just want to make sure you satisfy the assignment requirements, and then you'll have that. So there's no confusion at all. So it's not a 2-page document that's required, okay? Because I don't want nobody telling me, I did this because, and then they'll say, oh, I got to make up some stuff now. I don't want you doing that, okay? So I just don't want you doing that. You can do that on your own time, make up stuff, all right? Now, so anyway, that's the assignments for the week, all right? Let's go back again. And here we go, and that's it. Those are your assignments for the week. Now, I will go back and say this, that the agency or contact person should be from 1 of 4 places. Actually, I could tell you, it's in the last week, but I'm going to say this to you too. It's either jail, prison, probation, or parole. Jail, prison, probation, or parole. I'll say it one more time. Jail, prison, probation, or parole. If you select an agency that does not fit that, and I always tell students this, I say, remember, this is introductions to corrections. So what is corrections? It's correcting. So guess what? At this point, you've either pled guilty, been found guilty. So now the system's dealing with you to correct you. Very basic. So now, how do you correct somebody? Using 1 of 4 or a combination of these things. So just quickly, jail. Jail is incarceration for a short period of time, usually less than a year, and or while you're awaiting trial. But if you're awaiting trial and your trial takes a year or more, you're still going to be sent to jail and stay there until you make bail. Now, that's jail. Now, you get some of the same benefits, some of the, the educational things and so forth. So you do your research, you'll find that. But I'm just giving you a thumbnail sketch. Prison is more involved. That means then that you are incarcerated for a period over a year, and that you will go there and you're sentenced to, let's say you're sentenced to 2 years. I'm going to use 4 years. You're sentenced to 4 years. Okay, you will go to jail. I'm sorry, prison. You'll go in, be processed, and you'll be housed in prison. Depending on the crime, it'll be a minimum, maximum prison, and so forth. You'll learn all of that in weeks to come. But that's prison. Then the next thing that you have, the other 2 agents, and like I said before, to remind students, jail and prison are different. They actually serve the same thing, incarceration, but based on what I've said already, it gives you the idea of why we distinguish between the 2. Then there's probation. Probation is when, for example, you've been found guilty or pled guilty, and you don't go to jail. Some people call it a slap on the wrist. What it is, we've given you a chance based on the crime that has not been a very serious offense. Most people don't get probation for murder. I just don't see that very often. But you do see probation for some instances where individuals, drug cases, where theft, armed robbery, and stuff like that. You usually don't see that. The more serious offenses, you're less likely to see probation. So there is no paintbrush. You take it on a case-by-case basis. So probation, you're assigned by the court to a probation officer. That probation officer becomes your guardian angel. You have to report to that probation officer. You have to let that probation officer know everything. Some probation situations are very extensive. For example, those monitors. They'll put those ankle monitors on you, and you'll have to let them know where you are. There will be parameters that you're under house arrest. That will operate on probation, and you're allowed to be out. The bottom line in probation is that it gives you a chance to still be among the people, society, without going in and you're not incarcerated. If you violate probation, then a petition could be filed by the probation officer that revokes your probation because you messed up. Then you can go to jail for a period of time that the judge then will determine what that will be. That's probation. Parole is you, for example, had 4 years and you've served 2 years, but you've been good. You've done real well, and you therefore are given a chance to serve the rest of your sentence outside of jail. The most famous parole that took place happened in Nevada for a person that everybody knows, and it was broadcast all over TV, and that was the O.J. Simpson parole hearing. And in that hearing, then they determined that he had been a model prisoner. He still had more time, but then he was allowed to serve the rest of his time, and he said he wanted to come to Florida. I don't know if he ended up doing it or not, but anyway, the point of the matter is that he didn't have to spend the rest of his time behind bars. Now, if he messed up, then they will say, we're revoking that, and then ends up going in. Or sometimes they modify the parole or probation. So that's a little extra something I wanted to share, and I think that will help clarify some stuff that a lot of students need in terms of doing well here. Okay, so now that's it on the assignment. Any questions on the assignments? Any? Okay, since I can see you, you can shake your head. If I didn't see your video, I would say, I'm shaking my head. Oh, I can't see you. Okay, that's like being in class, though. See, this is cool when you can have the camera like that on both sides. So, all right, as long as you don't have, people like at my house. I got these characters that sometimes make guest appearances, and I tell them, don't do that, like my son walking by or something. So if you see a dog barking in the background here, that's not my house. I don't have one. All right, so now let's get to the lesson content of what this stuff is all about this week. Sentencing. Again, we start out by repeating again. There's again your assignments, section 4. And then sentencing got issues, sentencing definitions. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes for the rest of this session. Your written assignment, once again. Notice if you read this carefully under the bottom, in a little small print, you might not be able to see it too well, but it says additional time for study, research. See, you'll see research and reflection. So we always say SRR. So research and reflection. Reflection gives you the time to think about what you read, what you researched, and before you put your thoughts down and things like that. But and so that tells you what you should be doing in a process yourself. Now it says in an hour. Some people do it in an hour. Some people do it in 2 hours. If you're doing it in 2 minutes, then I want to know what you're doing. How you're doing that in 2 minutes. It says the activity takes 2 hours to do, and reflection 1. So this is just the parameter for yourself there. You don't have to say, okay, I finished this in an hour and a half. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to figure out something else for the next hour and a half so I can get to 2 hours. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Then we just give some suggested times. Discussion posts, and then the course project itself. This activity says 1 hour. Shouldn't take you 1 hour to put that thing together. Now, here's what I said week 1. I said, try, and many of you who didn't know about week 1 because you didn't have a chance to look at the archive of the open house or didn't attend, you need to, I said, get started right away. Get started right away. And I also, by the way, laid out the schedule for all of the assignments for the discussion posts. I'm not going to take time to pull that up because, again, it's very well laid out in the open house. If there's something I missed in the open house, please let me know so that I can make a note of it. But I'm pretty thorough with this now in terms of it. So anyway, these are all the assignments repeated again. So now let's talk about sentencing. So as many of you have gone through the process of picking your favorite system, the system that you think that works best, deterrence is what we kind of like, should I say, that was our foundation. Our foundation is that, okay, if somebody does something wrong and you penalize them or punish them, then they will think about it. You know, going back to when you were a kid, you know, you get a timeout. When I was coming, my people, there timeout, you got your butt whooped, and then a timeout where you thought about it. And we call that punishment, you know, where everybody's outside and you can't go. Or, you know what I'm saying. But the point of the matter is that, and so we felt that this would deter you or stop you or make you stop to think about before you do something wrong. And that's the same process that this whole process of sentencing is based upon. And it says here, however, deterrence really it doesn't work. It's the system, seriously. And I'm not, you know, saying to somebody else that wants to go with deterrence that it doesn't work. I'm going to tell you why it doesn't work. It has been statistically demonstrated through research that deterrence doesn't affect recidivism in a positive fashion. Recidivism is the repeating of a crime. So you go to jail, you serve your time, then you come out. By the way, when you go to prison, I call that University of Crime, because you learn more crime there than you learn on the streets, because you got these hardcore people there, people who are there for long periods of time, and you are a little small fish. You just went in there. Maybe you're even innocent, but if you stay there a long time, then you're going to pick up those habits to survive. That is why wrongful convictions are so detrimental to the life of an individual. You go in, and we've been seeing a lot of that. We've been seeing a whole lot of that. I got a dear friend who is actually practicing in New York now, and this young man was the victim of a rape in Wisconsin years and years ago, and his conviction was overturned, and he ended up saying that he was going to do something about it, so he went to law school. And he ended up getting cleared, went to law school, and now he's a practicing attorney in New York. He's from the area here in Illinois, but he is practicing there. But what it is, I'm getting ready to say to you, is that he's not the norm. What happens with a lot of the people is that they come out and they're criminals now. They weren't really criminals when they went in, but they got wrongfully convicted. But because to survive, you have to learn in the environment how to adapt. And so they become criminals. And so guess what? So in other words, back to the point, deterrence is not as effective. You're deterred as long as you're in there. Oh, by the way, If you are a drug user or something like that, you're not deterred from using drugs when you go to prison. Trust me, there's been a lot of um, contraband, including drugs provided to inmates. And one of the parties who provide that, unfortunately, are unethical correction officers and other individuals. But the people who should be helping them are actually helping to make the money themselves extra by providing things that hurt the inmate. So anyway, deterrence. And, somebody asked me, what's my position regarding the death penalty and as opposed to a person receiving a life sentence for a crime? Well, you're going to discover when you look at my open house something about me, and you're going to find the statement shocking. Some people do anyway, that I am against the death penalty, totally against it. And the reason why is because the death penalty doesn't really deter anybody from committing crimes. Only person that's deterred from committing the crime is the person who is subjected to the death penalty. That's it. Other people seeing that person, that doesn't make them stop and think, if I do this, I might get the death penalty. No, they don't think like that. It doesn't operate. So it's not a deterring factor. And the other thing with the death penalty that I don't like is because of the fact that there are too many innocent individuals that have been determined. When I was a lawyer practicing defense work, man, they didn't even have DNA. It didn't exist. So there are so many people who ended up going behind bars that had there been DNA, they would have been able to be exonerated and not convicted. And so it's important. But anyway, that's a little extra stuff. But deterrence is not as effective. Some believe that incapacitation, that is imprisoning or isolating individuals, would assist in crime prevention. Once again, it's the same concept, basically, except you're separating. Okay, here we go. You go into jail. It's a common knowledge. You go to jail, and you're a child molester or a rapist of children. You find yourself going to jail. Do you not know that the general population will either kill you or either hurt you? They don't like them, and so they have to segregate them in separate places. So what happens is that it doesn't help them. It doesn't help them to deal with the issues or problems. So what happens is they go in, they spend time, they're incapacitated for that period of time, and come out ready for the next time. So it says in here, clearly it does assist for the time period. Yeah, but research shows that it doesn't reduce recidivism. The key thing that I want to see is for you to go in and learn something to take you in another direction. Do a 180. Some people say, oh, no, do a 360. I says, next time you say that, think about what you just said. A 360, you start at one point, and you go around, and then you come right back to it. And I don't like to tell you, do a 360. I want you to do a 180 and go in a new direction. Some people says, well, what about if I do a 90? I says, well, okay, here's a 90. A 90 is like 3 o'clock on the clock. If you're facing forward at 3 o'clock, you can look to the left and you can see 12, and you look to the right and you see 6, right? So you look where you came from, and then you see where you're going. You don't need to be looking at anything that you came from. You want to go in a whole new direction. So then the next 15 takes you down to the 6. That way you're facing a new direction, and you keep going away from the situation. I like to use the rearview mirror approach. The rearview mirror approach is this, and if you drive or you're in a car, you have a rearview mirror in there. If you don't have a rearview mirror in your car, you don't drive it, okay? Because you can't see what's behind you. The purpose of a rearview mirror is to let you see what's coming up behind you, and also it lets you know where you came from. However, when you're driving, your focus needs to be on that windshield where you're going. Otherwise, if you're concentrating, you're driving and you're looking at the rearview mirror, boom, you're going to run into something. And excuse me, but so you want to focus on the big picture of where you're going. Then one other thing, and this applies to the point I'm making here, is that the further you move away from that thing and you look at your rearview mirror, it gets smaller and smaller, and then finally you don't even see it. Guess what, though? It's still there. So if you decide to keep on going around and do another 180 and 360, guess what? You're like Groundhog Day. That's a movie. And that means the same thing keeps happening over and over and over. Yeah, you're doing the same things. It is a sick mind who thinks that you can do the same thing exactly every time and get a different result. You got to have some variations. So the point of the matter is that we find ourselves saying that if you go in incapacitation or deterrence as a goal, then you're going to be releasing people back into society, and nothing's been fixed. You just held them up for that time. And you got to reprogram the process of thinking here. So this brings us to my concept, my favorite concept. And there's students, I don't criticize you if you have those other two, but rehabilitation, changing the direction, changing a person's behavior, attitude, reducing their risk to reoffend. Let me say this to you. I'm a senior citizen. Yeah, I'm a senior citizen. That's right. I don't have any kind of special parking stuff because I don't need it, okay? I do use senior citizen discounts, though, because I like saving money. But my point is that you'll discover, guys, and that I mean, you got to have some fun. You got to enjoy and laugh. But also it makes a point, too, is that as a senior, I don't want individuals who have been put into incapacitation or put in a deterrent situation and then let out. But number one, they're going to be upset, okay? And then here I am, this old dude, and they're going to come mess with me. I want to be able to live my life out with individuals that have learned something and demonstrate that with their life. You feel me on that one there? And it makes a whole lot of sense. Now, there are people that say, well, rehabilitation doesn't work for everybody. Duh. Nothing works for everybody. There's no paintbrushes here. But guess what? Just because it doesn't work for some people don't mean, let me say this. If there are 10 people and I try rehabilitation with and one of them get it, it was a success. And that's the whole point in a nutshell. But that's one less person who's going to go out and commit crime. And so we want to operate with rehabilitation. And so what do we do with that? We provide educational opportunities. If you have a drug problem, we get you the help that's necessary. When you take my drugs and crimes course, you'll learn some topics that I talk about, the seriousness about why drugs are really just rampant. We have an epidemic now. And anyway, the point of it is that there's a strong correlation between crime and drugs. Very strong. People commit crimes so they can support their habits and things like that. So anyway, the point of the matter is that I want to see a person helped. I want to see them go in another direction. I want to give them a second chance. And sometimes people say, well, you give them a third chance. Yeah, but if you don't do anything to help them and then turn them back loose to give them a second chance, you haven't really provided, anything to rehabilitate them. And so it's a process. But guess what? It is cheaper to educate than to incarcerate. That's a fact. That is a very serious issue. So rehabilitation is one of the issues. And you know what, guys? In the process of education, our correction officers are more and more educated into this time. You guys are in college. Did you not know that I have, for example, a young lady that was one of my former students, and now I'm helping her through law school, but she became a major. And this is others as well. She got her job as a correction officer with a high school diploma. Well, they're still taking them. However, they're moving away from that because they want more professionals, because of the fact that when you're more professional, your goal is in there to be more towards helping that inmate to go in another direction in life. Okay, and so it becomes a benefit to society, and as I said earlier, less likely for them to reoffend. Now, some will go back and do it, but again, we still do it. The philosophies of punishment are the basis for many sentencing options. Sentences are imposed by judges, but judges have usually determinate or indeterminate sentencing. Now, indeterminate sentencing generally is where the judge has a wide parameter, and the judge can say, for example, you're doing this number of years. Let's give it a hypothetical. The sentence says that that you find yourself in a situation. Well, yeah, it's moving towards 2-year college, and that's a good thing. But I'm telling you, there are people who are telling you, they says it wasn't like that. But now, you're right, it's moving toward that, and that's overdue in terms of it. But in terms of sentencing, indeterminate, the judge can say, for example, you have 4 years to 10 years. The judge can sentence you to 4 years, but let's say, for example, they don't have 4 to 10. Let's say the statute says you can do that, but the judge has discretion. The judge can give you something under that. But with indeterminate sentencing, that judge can do all kinds of things. With determinate sentencing, a range is given, and the judge cannot go away from that range. So if it's 6 to 10, anywhere within that 6 to 10, they can sentence you. They can't do 5, and they can't do 11 either. So that's the deal. Illinois is a determinate sentencing process. Now, I know well about that, and the reason why I know about that is because there was a law that took place in 1977, before some of you were even thought of, that said that we will change Illinois for the first time since 1961 to a determinate sentencing. House Bill 1500 was introduced. When you do research, you'll find this. Now, I'm talking about Illinois. And that I know all about that because when I was in law school, I helped rewrite it. I helped write determinate sentencing. And it's very important to me. Again, when you pay attention to open house, you'll understand why I say that. But I was a master with being able to explain to the judges when sentencing came for clients. And a lot of my clients that we ended up having to plead guilty, I had to do a sentencing hearing for. Clients that were found not guilty, I said, see you later, and they went away. They didn't get into corrections. But the point of the matter is with determinate sentencing, the more serious the offense, the area was set up. For example, we had habitual offenders. You guys hear about that. A lot of states call it the 3 strikes law, where if you commit 3 offenses, you go for a long period of time. Well, we subjected that law to a lot of scrutiny, and we said we don't want people who do minor offenses to give them 3 strikes. But if they were major offenses, such as possessing guns or violence or something like that, then they got it. But anyway, the bottom line is I know a lot about determinate sentencing as well. And so for those of you in Illinois, you will see my comments about it. I don't know much about the other states. I practiced in some of those, but I didn't help write it. Sentencing guidelines limit the judge's discretion to those guidelines, as I said, and can be set up with mandatory minimums or maximum sentences as well. So it's important to understand the role of sentencing with corrections and how we enforce the laws in the various states and jurisdictions. And it talks about in both the community probation and parole. And let's see, notice this. In the community, probation and parole. Remember what I said earlier? Probation, you don't go to jail, but you stay in the community. Parole, you're able to get back in the community earlier than your complete sentence. That's why they say community. And then institutional is jail for the short period of time, and then the long period of time for a prison. So that's how sentencing issues operate. Now that gives you a little clue about your written assignment as well. So now, let me run this, set that up. It'll pop up in a second. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to conclude by talking about definitions, sentencing definitions. And these are things that will help you. Did I hear anybody say quiz? Yes. Okay. These are things that you should. She said no. But anyway, it will help you with your quiz. It really will, to know these definitions, because as you've probably been able to determine from week one, that there's a lot of definitions in there. Guess what? In the criminal justice, there's a lot of definitions, especially when you deal with. Wait till you take criminal law. I'll see you there. I'll be there, waiting for you. So. General deterrence. So what's general deterrence? You flip this over. It's punishment to prevent others from committing, it says, from committing crimes. No, it means committing crimes. Idea that severely punishes the individual, deters offenders who are contemplating it. I already spoke on that. I don't think so. Again, statistically, that's been shown not to be correct. So that's what that is. That's the definition, again, of it. So if you want to know what general deterrence is, that's what it means. Incapacitation. Physically restraining or isolating individuals to protect society. So you might, put them in solitary confinement or something like that, or isolating them. Remember I talked about the individuals who commit crimes. By the way, this actually happened in many jurisdictions, but in Illinois, there's one in particular that always comes to mind. If you are a law enforcement officer and you end up incarcerated, as several have learned, they're going to have to isolate you for your protection. Hello? Because remember, there's people in there that you participate in them being in there, and they're waiting on you. And so you're going to have to be protected. There's a famous serial killer in Wisconsin, Jeffrey Dahmer. You guys ever heard of that? Jeffrey Dahmer, D-A-H-M-E-R. Take a look at it sometimes. Illinois doesn't have death penalty anymore, but Wisconsin hasn't had it for years. And this guy was guilty of serial murder, mutilating, and cannibalism. Look at your eyes. Yes, he was eating the people, so I mean, he loved them for real. But anyway, so he ended up being found guilty and was incarcerated. And so they said, man, this guy should get the death penalty. Well, they don't have any death penalty there, so they gave him life. Well, what happened there is, and I believe that some of the officers didn't like him either. So anyway, long story short is he was killed in a gang murder in the prison. And so that got him, and that's what happened to him. So what I'm saying, that's why I talked about protection for society, but also from the jail society as well. So that's incapacitation. Selective incapacitation goes even further into repeat offenders are sentenced to longer prison terms. Well, that goes without saying. I mean, you keep doing the stuff, they give you longer time. But once again, I already told you, the longer you're in prison, You're going to come out. Let me say this. Most prisoners don't receive life sentences. You're aware of that, right? Most prisoners get a period of sentencing, and then they come back out. And when they come out, they're not really that good to society. They can't wait to get out. And they find themselves committing more violent offenses or either some more serious offenses, and they come back around. And we have this revolving door thing. I had clients that I represented that I saw that I pled them guilty. They ended up going for a short period of time, getting out. Guess what happened? One of two things happened to them. They either came back to me for another charge, or either I attended their funeral because they kept committing crimes. And these are young people. I mean, and so I had people, listen to me, I had a book called The Book of Shame, which consisted of 24 of my cases. I think the oldest one was 26. I think the youngest one was a juvenile, 13 or 14. All of those are people that I represented. And they were either found, they either pled guilty and got a light sentence, or they were found not guilty and they were out. But here's what happened. All of those people, I talked to them and discuss. Yeah, I will publish a book. I got another book to write. You hear my open house, you'll know that about that book too. But the point of the matter is that those individuals actually ended up in situations and circumstances where, after I talked to them about changing their lives, you remember I was talking about the 180 thing? They didn't get that. They did a 360 and found themselves right back. So then they were a revolving door. But most of those in that book, on the left side, I had their disposition, where they finished the case with me. I noted the date that I had a discussion with them in between that time. On the right side of the page, every one of them, I had obituaries. They all ended up killed. And that's what I'm saying. So that's why I talk about rehabilitation, more. So anyway, repeat offenders are sentenced to longer sentences. That's not necessarily a resolution to the issue either. Rehabilitation, there we go. Changing their behavior, attitudes, beliefs to diminish their criminal propensities. Okay. Restorative justice. Repairing the harm done. Offender makes amends to the loss the victim may have served the community, such as serving community service, and sometimes it involves restitution, where the person pays back in money damages for amounts that involved with the crime if they could. That's what we call restorative justice. Okay. Concurrent sentence. Now, oh boy, a concurrent sentence means this, very simply, before I flip it over. Concurrent, that means it runs alongside, okay? So I'll give you an example. This happened in my life, for real. I know I lost my parents at an early age, which you'll discover when you go through my open house again. At the end, you'll hear my story. But my adopted mother was the victim of a kidnapping in '71. And she was shot twice in the head. And when she was shot twice in the head, the other person who was with her was killed. So the person was sentenced at this time. Now, this was in 1971. Now remember, this was before the law changed, which I told you changed in '77, '78, which I participated in helping change. Well, anyway, the big news story came out that this guy was getting 120 years. And oh boy, in actuality, he did not get 120 years. He received 4 30-year terms, which if you multiply that, that's 120. So what would happen is that each day he served one of the 30-year terms, he actually served the other. So basically, 1/4 of each day, he was serving part of that. So what that meant basically is 120 meant really 40 years. That's all it meant. And furthermore, we had good behavior at that time, and you'll learn about that when you hear my story, that 40 years really meant 20. And that if you did well while you were in prison, then they can cut off another part. So that's what it was. Now we have less concurrent sentencing. A person is convicted 2 or more crimes that begin at the same time and are completed when the longest has been served. So so all of those were equal. But let's say, for example, that if they received a total of 120 and he received 20 years for 3, let's say he leaves 25 years for 3. Then once the longest one was served, then all others were wiped out. So it didn't really mean that. And that's what concurrent sentencing was. And we don't have that much now. Consecutive is what we do have. It means what it says. When one starts and finish, then you start the next one. For example, there was a guy who was a police officer who was found guilty of murdering his wife here in Illinois. And so, our bandwidth changed. So they killed your camera. But anyway, we're just about at the end. It says that this individual is convicted of 2 or more crimes. 2 or more crimes. And if that person is with 2 or more crimes, then that person finishes that year. So he was sentenced to, I think he was sentenced to 60 years for killing his ex-wife. But then, while he was incarcerated, he did a stupid thing. He tried to have the prosecutor killed, and then he was found guilty of that. So 60 years was going to be his life anyway, because he was already in his late 50s or 60s. So he wasn't, going to get out. But now he commits another crime while he's in there, found guilty, and they added that onto it. So then he's going to complete the first one first, and then get the second one. It's not going to happen because he's not going to finish the first one. So that's what consecutive means. One starts after the other. Determinate sentencing, we already talked about that. Fixed term and set up by the legislator. Indeterminate sentencing, and it gives the judge wide parameters. Okay. Sentencing guidelines are based on how serious the offense. The more serious the offense and the individual's background, we do what we call a pre-sentence investigation, or PSI, before sentencing, to determine the history of that